I think there's so many people can be set free with this one simple principle. The problems in your life you created. No one else. You created them through commission. You committed the crime, or through omission. You allowed it. All the problems in your life you created. So did I. So did Daniel. When you're able to own that and say, wow, I am one powerful person because my life looks like crap right now. And I created all that crap.
Are you confident? Do you have consistency? How much conviction do you have? I'm Daniel Gomez, the Confidence Architect, a business strategist, keynote speaker, executive coach, and best-selling author. On the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show, we will help you unlock confidence to create consistency and develop conviction. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence. Welcome to another episode of the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. We have an amazing guest today. Mr. Joseph Warren is joining us all the way from Tampa, Florida. And I had the pleasure of meeting Joseph almost 2 years ago already at the New Media Summit over here in Austin, Texas. And he's just an amazing gentleman. And I really love him. I really respect him. And you're awesome, man. So Joseph Warren, welcome to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show.
Daniel, I'm already inspired to be here by you, brother. You inspire so many people, and you, my friend, are the real deal.
Man, I'll tell you, before we came on live, we had a heart-to-heart talk, and it's been a very challenging day for me, and I'm just being honest, being real. And you told me, hey, if we're going to do this podcast, I don't want you to come up here with this false energy. I want you to speak from your heart. So I figured it was a great idea because I think too many of us, we put on this facade that everything's perfect all the time, and it's not. It's those very challenges that come to us every single day that really make us who we are. But before we get into it, I know who you are. You're an amazing guy, but do me a favor, introduce yourself to the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show and let the world know who you are, Mr. Warren.
Sure. So my name is Joseph Warren. I host the #1 podcast on iTunes for Protestants and Catholics. It's called Broken Catholic. And I host the #1 podcast on iTunes for Christian men and women entrepreneurs. And that's called Your First 100K. So that's what I do for fun as a hobby, is that audio experience. And then in my day-to-day life, I am a spiritual life coach for Christian business owners who are married with children specifically. They have a whole specific set of struggles. I'm recently married. We just got married last year, my beautiful bride. And we had our brand new baby girl 3 months ago during the pandemic. And so we had a different type of pandemic. God sometimes just brings someone to us that fills your heart with joy. And my daughter, Alora Love Warren, is that little bundle of joy. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a new dad and aspiring to be a great one.
Man, well, you're an amazing person. I love you, man. I love your heart because you're real. And you always bring out the best in me. That's why I love talking to you. Sometimes we talk to these people and they don't lift you up. And dude, before we got on here, I'm going to tell you, I wanted to go back to bed. Just a lot of sequences. Like I got hit in the face. I got hit in the chin. I got hit in the stomach. And man, I just wanted to go to bed, to be honest with you, man. I was just like, today's a day. I took my punches and I said, but if I can do one thing, try to come up here and do some work. And my mind wasn't focused, just a lot of stuff going on. And as I sat on the couch, just really leaning back, that's when he said, hey man, are we going to do the show? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do the show. And, you said, but I want you to do it real. So that's why we're here. And what I love about you is you bring out more genuineness in me because you are the real deal. And I want to say thank you for that. Thank you for making me a better person because we either I call them lifters or downers. People lift us up or they bring us down. And you're definitely a lifter in my life. And I want to say thank you for being one of those lifters in my life, brother.
You're welcome, Daniel. And I get how real that is coming from you. I also want to say that whatever good you see in me or see me doing possibly in the world, that truly is from God. I know this. I have evidence of this. This isn't false humility. I have evidence of this when I look back on my entire life and I see a life of complete ego, arrogance, self-reliance, pride. And I also see a man in myself back then that was very miserable in his life and very alone. Though I've always had a lot of friends around me, I always also felt very alone. And it was because I was pursuing my plans and schemes, not God's. I was using people to get me closer to my goals. And I didn't see people as relationships. I saw people as transactions. And I pretended they were relationships, and I got really good at it. So I occurred as genuine for the most part with many people. But then there was the few savvy ones that could see through it and see I really just had what was in it for me as my main agenda. So through God humbling me, through many situations in my life where I ran out of Joseph, as I said earlier, I finally arrived at the edge of self, at the edge of ego, at the edge of my pride. And as I stood there empty, broken, exhausted, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to get back up, not knowing what my future looked like, it's there that God met me. It's there that God lifted me, carried me, took me forward. Because I finally got to a place of trying to do it all myself. And I think so many Christians, that's what we do. We put the weight of our own destinies on our shoulders, and it doesn't belong to us. We steal our own destiny from God. And that's why our lives look the way they do. We cause a lot of unnecessary suffering.
Yeah. And it's kind of ironic you say that, unnecessary suffering. So this is a part of our podcast that I like to tell our audience to make sure you get your pen and paper out. It's time to put pen to paper, because when you take notes, you write stuff down, you're 80% more likely to retain the information that we're talking about. And I think for me, what you're saying is today, I just felt like I had to take control of things because that's my personality. I was moving left. Everything was moving right. Then I would move right. Everything would move left. And then I went back to the left, and then everything went back to the right. And I'm just like, okay, like, what is it, right? Like, God, what are you trying to show me? I give up.
I call that chasing the sunset. You're chasing the horizon. It's a moving target. You'll never catch it. And that's how you know you're not lined up with God. And you may be lined up with like moving in his plan, but at some point you reached back and took back control. So God said, okay, you want to do it yourself, son? Go ahead. Let me know how it works out. And what happens? You get confused and disoriented real quick.
How many of us do that though? We want to control everything. And this is for me today. I really, and it wasn't bad things, but it was just that I was just getting frustrated with this. And then that frustration carried over to this. And then you're like, hey man, I haven't received the link for the podcast. And I'm like, we talked on the phone and you were like, if you're going to do the show, I want you to show up real. So we're showing up real today. And you said, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. And I said, no, I got to do it because I committed to this show. I committed to my audience. I committed to you, first of all, because if I don't respect you as a person, because you took your time, you set an hour aside for me to be on the show, right? To come on the Daniel Gomes Inspire show. If I was to give up and say, you know what? Yeah, let's just do it next time. It's easy to do that. And that's what most of us do. And in that easiness, we miss the growth. We miss the character. We don't expand our capacity to receive more. And right now, just talking with you, I'm really seeing that I'm at full capacity and God's expanding me and growing me and going deeper in me. And it hurts, man. It really, really hurts. And as much as I wanted to say, you know what, Joseph, man, Joseph gave me that out card. I'm out, right? I can go. Let's do it next time. Is that really the right thing to do? And I didn't feel in my heart it was the right thing to do. Why do you think so many people take the easy way out and probably would have And I'm not giving myself kudos because it was really hard to say, let's do it, because I really wanted to say no. But why do you think so many people say, yeah, they take the easy way out, Joseph?
I think we have a comfort bent tendency as human beings. It's our default switch. So if we're not being willful or intentional, and I can look at my own life, if I'm not intentionally pushing myself forward or intentionally aligned in God's will and plan for my life, my natural default is to go back to ego, go back to self, to go back to control. And my little control freak that we all have, by the way, my little control freak takes over. And it aggressively fights for what it thinks is my best or the best for me, rather than God's best for me. And I look at it this way, Daniel. I have, and I'm sure anybody who's on right now listening to this, you can look back over your whole life and ask yourself, I have a thing in my spiritual coaching, and you've heard it before. I say, your mind is a liar. Your heart speaks the truth. Your mind is a liar. Your heart speaks the truth. Most of us, if we're being really honest with ourselves, where do we live? In our head or in our heart?
In our head.
In our head.
Yeah.
Guess where all the suffering happens? All the problems, all the confusion, all the emotional strain, all the disconnection with people. It's all a head problem. It's not a heart problem. Your heart already knows what's good for you. God pre-wired it. God created it. It's from him. And for all us Judeo-Christians out there, where does Jesus say he lives? In the head of man or in the heart of man?
In the heart.
In the heart. Yet where do we all choose to live? In our heads. So that's why we're just so disconnected from God. And when we're disconnected from God, we're disconnected from each other. And the way society is going right now, that's great evidence of exactly what happens when you push God out of society. We all end up fighting each other. Go ahead.
I agree. So let me ask you, if someone's never been taught, how do I open my heart? Because everybody right now, you hear a lot of just coaches and speakers and just people talk about mindset, which is important. I get it. So how does somebody go, Joseph, about opening their heart? Because I always say this when I train in coaches. I say, when you open your heart, it opens your mind to new possibilities. And tell us a golden nugget, or tell us something. Tell us, how can somebody open their heart if they never really open their heart? And what keeps people from opening their heart? Elaborate on that if you don't mind.
Sure. Before I go into the how, I think it's important to build a little just kind of backbone to why. Why do you want to live in your heart instead of your head? Well, the first thing is, you answer the question right now. If you're listening or watching this show right now, is look back over your life. And I asked myself this question, and I said, okay, I've been letting my mind run my life this whole time. And I'm one of the top self-improvement junkies out there. I've been doing it since I was 19 years old. Tony Robbins, all the stuff. I would read and listen to all the programs. And it served me well in business, but in my personal life, I was a wreck. So I lived in my head this whole time, most of my life. And I had to look back and say, okay, did my brain, I've been letting my brain run everything. And my brain's been saying, hey, put me in charge and I'll get you what you want. You want that? You want that? You want money, success, power, all this stuff. And it got me a lot of that stuff. I did well in business, millions of dollars and all that stuff, right? But I was still miserable. Why? Because like my head only got me the things that the head can get, which are these things that really don't matter. So I had to get to this point of looking at my life and saying, okay, brain, mind, whatever you want to call it, I've had you in charge long enough. You had your chance. You've had 10 years, 20 years, 30 years to get it right. And I'm still not where I want to be. You're fired. You're fired.
Wow.
Serious. I'm a business guy, Daniel. You're a business guy. Many people watching are business people. If you had an employee or someone running your company that wasn't getting you the results you actually wanted for the company, after 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, wouldn't you fire them?
Yeah. And the car business is usually 6 months. If you don't start getting the numbers up to what they wanted to, it's like, thank you, but no thanks, right?
So why do we tolerate less results from our own minds? And when I finally got that, because we don't see another option. That's why we do it. We think it's the only option. Well, my brain's in control, so that's what it is. My brain puts negative thoughts in. Well, I must be a negative person. My brain says I'm a piece of crap. Well, I must be a piece of crap. This is all the inner self-talk going on. What we don't realize is that our heart speaks the truth. There's an alternative. That's where Jesus lives. That's where God lives. That's where truth lives. That's where all our goals and dreams are waiting. Yeah. That's where human connection and love and joy and peace are waiting for us. I didn't know that.
That's
when I finally got that. I said, enough. Brain, you're fired. Heart, let's go. Show me what it looks like. And so let's get into the how. Because you asked, well, how does someone switch from their head to their heart? You've heard the saying, it's the furthest distance in the universe is from the head to the heart.
Yeah.
Only if you don't know what you can actually get when you live in your heart. Once you get that your brain, it's not working, meaning it's not getting you what you actually want, and you fire it, it's a very quick trip to your heart. Like, it's instant. The second you make a definitive decision, instant transformation. So what did I do first? Well, I had to surrender because my mind was polluted with a lifetime of hurts, a lifetime of trauma, a lifetime of unmet expectations, disappointments, broken relationships. There was all that poison in my mind. How do I expect my mind to go and get me good things when it's riddled in toxicity? But my heart's been pure this whole time. And I still have a good heart. I still genuinely love people and want to help people, as do many people watching. I believe most of the world are good. They have good hearts. So I surrendered to God. And what it looked like was simply this. And anyone listening can do it. Father, or Heavenly Father, I surrender to you blank. What's the thing your little control freak is desperately clinging on to and refuses to give over to the creator of the universe? What's that area of control you just will not let go of in your life? Here's the hint. It's probably the area of your life that's not working.
Wow.
It's probably the area of your life where you wish you can improve. Or it's not where you want it to be. Maybe you have a decent marriage, but it's not a thriving marriage. Well, guess what? You're the one blocking it. I was.
That's powerful, man.
It's your little control freak. We all have one. And until we surrender our little control freak to God, the creator, the only one who has control over anything, and this pandemic is evidence enough of that. Until we do that, we're constantly fighting for future dreams and goals for ourselves that don't actually exist. Again, it's like chasing the horizon. You always feel like you're getting closer to it, but it keeps moving and you never actually catch it. And before you know it, you're on your deathbed looking back on a life of regret. And then you're dead.
Wow. So you made a comment, and I just want to point this out to our audience listening here on a Daniel Gomez Inspire show, is that we surrender, and sometimes we surrender I always see it like as a house. Our heart is a house. You have your kitchen, you have your living room, and each room is relationships, like you said, finances, career, just different. And I think sometimes for myself, the struggle was I would surrender totally in one area, and then in other areas, I wouldn't want to surrender. And that's not surrendering. And I wouldn't see that. And for me, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. For me, it was just, I was real ambitious when I was younger. And it was like, I had to be the best. I had to win. And of course, in that ambition is money. And then I think along the way, greed set in and greed to where, and you don't think it's greed because you're just like, well, I just want this and I want that. And it's like, okay, well, it's like you save $5,000. Like, yeah, well, when I save 10,000, I'll be happy. And then you hit to 10,000. You're like, well, then I hit 12,000. And it's like, it's just that selfish ambition. And I didn't see that. And that's kind of what you're saying is ask yourself, in what area of your life have you not surrendered? And I think just talking to you earlier, just what is coming to my mind right now is, for me, it's just like control and impatience. Because I was shifting left. Everybody was going right this morning. I would go right. They were going left. And since I wasn't in control, I got frustrated. I was just like, man. And I really just like got upset, man. I was just like mad. And I was like, I told my wife, just leave me alone. Like, I went outside, looked into the yard and just watched the water, the jets of the pool come out and just tried to calm down, got on Facebook, just kind of, just to get my mind off my frustrations.
Facebook is the worst place to go to calm down.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But, I figured I'd catch a quote or something, a Christian quote, or I don't know, but that's just what I did. It's what I do to relax. And the thing is, this is right now that we're still in quarantine, we're in front of this computer every single day, all day. And that's the worst thing you could do too. Really so I knew that if I went outside and get some fresh air, it was going to be a different ambiance, a different. But now that I'm talking to you, I realize that it's letting go of that control in my life. And I think this is where a lot of us make a mistake, because this is where I see that is there's always the next level for us to go higher in life, in business, in our relationships. We need to go deeper and heal what's keeping us from going to that next level. Because if we don't have the character, if we don't have the capacity to handle that relationship, that blessing, it's going to bring you down. And it just stinks when all that junk's coming to the surface. It's like, I always talk about it. It's like that gold, right? When you heat up that gold and the dross comes up, and that dross is all the impurities of the gold. And that's what they take off the top. And I think that's what God was doing to me today. He was heating me up and all the impurities were coming up, and it hurt. It hurt because you're under the fire.
Can I jump in there?
Tell me, talk to us.
I coach with a lot of businessmen who are very successful. They're killing it in business, yet they're going home miserable. And when we get into real conversations and, like you said, we uncover some of those, bubbling up of things that God wants out of them, what we do, especially as men, is we suppress it. We push it back down because it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's real. It's emotional. Why is my face starting to leak? I don't want to deal with that. Push, push, push. And we push it down. And we have gotten so good at that as men, to suppress in our lives, in our hearts, the very things God is trying to heal us from, to set us free from. And it's actually a great, healthy, awesome thing when that thing is bubbling to the surface, because that means God wants to take it. That's the very thing he wants, is the thing that's right in front of you that's making you really uncomfortable. That means it came up. It came to the surface. That childhood trauma, that abuse, that hurt, that pain, that struggle, that control issue, right? Whatever it is. So what I advise my clients and whoever's listening right now is, don't do the thing you've been doing your whole life and push it back down. God wants it out right now. How do you know that? Because it's showing up right now. That means he wants it out right now. That's how you know. Some people are like, oh, I'll work on that later. Let me push it back down. I have other priorities. No, God's saying this is the priority. The thing that I'm bringing to the surface, I want out of you. I love you. You're my child. You're beautiful. You're magnificent. You're precious to me, and you're suffering, and I'm watching it. You prayed a year ago for me to heal this area of your life. Then you went back to work and you didn't let me, or you suppressed it back down, or you tried to fix it yourself with your little control freak. I've done it enough. I was a self-improvement junkie. I'll fix me, God. Thanks. You bless me. I'll fix me.
So let me ask you this, because I think this is something that we kind of make a mistake on, or maybe we've never been taught right or realize this, but I truly believe some of my own clients, we talk about areas of unforgiveness in their heart, because I truly believe that there's two things that keep your business from growing, and that's strife and unforgiveness. Because when you have strife, you have complaining, you have arguing, you kind of just, it's strife, right? There's just always anger there. And then unforgiveness, it's like you never create the capacity to grow yourself, to grow your business. And something amazing happened to me 2 weeks ago, because I was just there reading and doing my morning hour, like you kind of taught me how to do. Well, you taught me, you told me, hey, do this. And as I was reading my Bible and I was just studying, I felt like God said, hey, I want you to call your son and apologize. And I was like, apologize for what? And all of a sudden, like, dude, the Holy Spirit came up on me and I was crying. Like, I wasn't just like crying like tears. Like, I was like, like the Holy Spirit just boom, got a hold of me. And I called my son and I said, hey, Jay, I just want to tell you, man, I want you to forgive me for this. And he goes, Dad, like, I forgive you. Like, I said, no, I really want you to forgive me for this, son. And when we spent about 15 minutes on the phone, he let me cry. I guess I love my son and he's real chill, right? He's totally opposite of me. And I guess he was saying, well, if my dad wants to cry, let him cry and I'll hear him out, right? Because he's a good listener. But the reason I say this is because I had already asked my son to forgive me 3 years ago for a lot of the mistakes that I had made. But what God showed me was, I'm taking you deeper. So it's another level of forgiveness. Talk to us a little bit about that. Because I think sometimes we make the mistake that, maybe it's a shallow forgiveness, or just like, hey, I'm sorry. But I truly believe with my son that, because I've seen this in my own life, that I've asked for his forgiveness 3 years ago. But God said, hey, I want you to ask him to forgive you for this particular thing. And I did. So I saw that as a deeper level of forgiveness. And what do you say to that, Joseph?
I think it's brilliant what you're bringing up, Daniel. And it's one of the number one things that I work with my clients on in the spiritual coaching is unforgiveness. If we look back, well, forget the theoretical. Let me be real. I looked back on my life in my dating relationship and I saw a trail of, excuse the term, human wreckage. People I had hurt, good people, God's precious daughters. And I was not a bad person. I was a good guy. I never harmed anybody intentionally or maliciously, but I was out trying to get what was mine. See, when the little control freak's in charge, it's all about what's mine. And that means using things around us to get things, right? And we use people, unfortunately. So I saw this trail of human wreckage and broken relationships. And I really finally got to the place, God brought me to the place of looking at what was my part in it. Rather than blaming all of them for why relationships didn't work, what was my part in that relationship failing or not going forward, etc. And when I started to ask that question in one area of my life, I started to ask that question in all areas of my life. And God allowed me to see clearly my part in many of these areas. Well, that's the first step, is clarity. The second step is accountability. And God had me then go clean up the messes in my life. Well, what does cleaning up the messes in your life actually look like? It sounds nice, but what does it look like? Well, it looks like it's going to suck. It's going to suck for a short amount of time. And what it looked like specifically in my life was getting on the phone, reaching out, messaging, however I could find these individuals that I had hurt from years ago, from months ago, getting on the phone with them and saying, hey, I've been doing a lot of spiritual work, and something God has showed me is that I've really hurt a lot of people, and you're one of those people. And I just want to own my part in our relationship. And I didn't maliciously try to hurt you, but I was very selfish. And I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for all that I did that caused you pain. would you be willing to forgive me? And then I stop talking and I'd wait. And there's something very powerful and very vulnerable in what I call a forgiveness conversation, what I'm describing, which is a real forgiveness conversation. It's where you hand over your power to the person you hurt and give them a choice to forgive you or not.
And that's hard to do, right? Transfer that power over.
Bro, that's the suck part. That's the suck part. And my inner control freak wants to come up with reasons and excuses why I did what I did to justify it, right? And no, not allowed in that conversation. I show up, I own up, and then I hand over my power and say, would you be willing to forgive me? And then go quiet. Forgave me. And some let me off the hook real easy. And I said, and they're like, no, there's nothing to forgive. We both did things to hurt each other, etc. And I said, no, please don't let me off the hook. I want to own my part in that so I can move forward.
So let me ask you this, because you said something that was pretty powerful right there. And I want to kind of I think it's a great point to bring up, is you said you had to own up to it. Mm-hmm. And I see that a lot of us, we don't own up to what wrongs we've done. But
that's why we don't move forward in our lives. That's why we stay stuck.
So say if somebody isn't owning up to it, mm-hmm. What's a good way for, I guess, say we have somebody that maybe it's your spouse, we'll just say it's within the family. Sure. How can you kind of bring that up in conversation or to deal with something like that if they're not owning that? Because this is what I call it. I call it learned helplessness, because you think somebody owes you something. And I see that sometimes right now, it's like people, they feel like they're owed something. Like, right, you owe me this, Joseph, you owe me this. And no one owes you anything. And I believe that's a big reason why so many of us, we don't take that responsibility, that ownership. Speak to that a little bit if you're dealing with something like that. Maybe you're the person that lives with that other person, or you have that friend or family member in your life. Talk about that a little bit if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So in every relationship, there's two or more people. Okay. That's the first thing to get. The second thing to really understand is that if the relationship you're in is not working, you can look at it clearly and just say, this isn't working. You don't have to go past that. You don't have to make wrong and blame. That actually will sabotage it worse. Rather, just look at the relationship you're in, whichever relationship, romantic relationship, business relationship, right? Spousal relationship, and just say, is it working or not working? It's a no blame question. And if your answer is to ask yourself, what's my part in it? What's my part in this not working? And if you take the time, you'll see it. Or you can go to the other person if needed and say, hey, I realize this relationship's not working, or it's not going. What do you see in it not working? What am I doing that's making this not work? Like, if you just got real with your spouse like that, I promise you they will have things to say.
Yeah.
They will tell you, okay? But for the most part, if you just spend a little time quietly with yourself, with God, silently, God will show you your part in it.
Yes. Man, this is so powerful. This is some great, man, thank you so much for just sharing your heart, because I think it's going to help a lot of relationships just right now, because it's just stuff that sometimes we don't want to hear, but we need to hear it.
Absolutely, right? And they're waiting. That person you love is waiting for you just to own your part. And they know they have a part. They know they're screwing up too. They just don't have the courage to come to you with it. So,
and you're so right. You know what? I want to say that because this is what happens is, and I've been with my wife for 25 years, and it's amazing how now I see it that, like, she didn't have the courage to make a simple comment. And I'm like, well, what do you think? And it's not that she didn't want to vocalize what was in her heart. It's just that over the years, over the decades that we were married, it's like, I was always a dominant husband. I was always like, hey, especially being Hispanic, right? That machismo. Yeah. Hey, it's my way or the highway. And like, that's just the way it was for many years. And I'm not proud of that, but it teaches a person to not have the courage to speak up. And now she's speaking up, and I love it because she's speaking into my life, and she's edifying me and encouraging me.
Beautiful.
Like days like this that suck, right? This morning sucks.
Yes.
And because we're just being real, she was the one like, hey, well, let's say a prayer, or hey, let's do this. And it worked good for the first couple of hours, but then I said, just give me my space, because I just
Sure.
need my space right now. But you're right, that courage to say something, we need to put our ego aside and be open to feedback to what the people have to say to our lives. And especially if it's your spouse, because it breaks my heart, because I was a real asshole to my wife many years and I didn't see it. Just because we provide the money, the house, they just want your heart. And that's what I think this is what this whole podcast episode is about, is just without the heart being involved in business and relationship and life, and you're just going at it with your mind, you're never going to achieve the success level that you can. You're never going to have, like you said, you're never going to have that happiness like those multimillionaire people that you coach.
That's right.
You agree with that? Is that kind of what we're talking about, right? I'm kind of summing it up, but I
You did great. You did great. And God also wants your heart. That's all he wants. He just wants your heart. It's the same thing. Your spouse wants your heart. Your kids want your heart. God wants your heart. Your friends want your heart. That's it. You want real human connection? You got to come from the heart. I want to go back to something you said just a minute ago, Daniel, about your wife and how over the years you were this machismo alpha type husband. I think you brought up a very vulnerable thing, especially for us men, but it also applies to women. And this is, we train people how to treat us. We train people how to treat us. What that means simply is this. If you have a person in your life who is mistreating you, what's your part in it? You train them to mistreat you. You train them. Now, you either did it intentionally, which hopefully you didn't, or you did it by allowing it. You did it by allowing it, by tolerating mistreatment. So, Daniel, you used a great example, and I used to do the same thing in my relationships. I occur as intimidating for the most part in my presence, how I show up, etc. I tend to be very clear, very articulate, very forceful. That has served me well in business and has been disastrous in my personal relationships. I wanted to improve my personal relationships, so I went to the people in my life who were closest and dearest to me. And I said, can you be real with me? Can you show me my character defects so that I can go and fix me? Right? Again, self-reliance, trying to fix myself rather than God. So I didn't have that clarity yet. But they did not know how to be real with me about negative things in my character that they were very clear on. They all saw it, but they couldn't come to me and say it because they didn't feel safe with me. They felt like I was going to come at them if they got real with me. I was going to submit them, diminish them if they got real with me. Why? Because I had trained them in my relationship with them that I'm in charge, I'm in control, you're the one with brokenness and issues, and I'll help fix you. And I created all these coaching type of relationships in my personal relationships where I was the coach and they were the client and I was there to fix them. And I had this distorted view of helping others. And it didn't work for me. So that left me in a place of my own prison where even the people who did truly love me and care for me didn't know how to speak to me and tell me and show me the things I could work on to show up better in my life and get more of what I actually wanted. So I had to own that, realize I caused it. It's not their problem. And then I had to retrain them. Here's the good news. You have trained every person in your life who mistreats you. You've trained them to mistreat you. You now also have that same power to train them how to treat you well.
Yes, that's so powerful.
You have the power.
Wow.
If you could train people to mistreat you, you can train people to treat you exquisitely. You have that power.
Wow.
And I started to show up in my relationships by not diminishing people, by asking people questions, shutting the bleep up and listening. and encouraging them to speak their voice without me coming at them and reprimanding them, or you didn't say it well, or you didn't say it perfectly. And over time, and it took time, there was consequences to my poor behavior. Over time, these people, let me just wrap this up. Over time, these people started to pour into my life and started to have the courage to speak truth into me and to say, Joseph, I know you say you want this, but man, you're acting this way over here and it's stopping you. Like I clearly see, everyone sees it. I'm like, what? I am? What do I do? And I showed up as a client rather than a coach for the first time in my life. And I let those closest to me coach me. And guess what, Daniel? I got what I wanted. I got the relationships I wanted. I got the marriage I wanted with the girl of my dreams. I got this beautiful new baby. I got the business. I got relationship with God like I never thought I could have. When I let go and surrendered to God and I surrendered my control to others, people I trusted.
Wow.
And you can too.
I hope our audience, our listening audience here caught that we train people, write that down. We train people how to treat us. We show people how we are going to allow them to treat us, is what Joseph said. And if you've been mistreated, write that down. You can show them and retrain them how you want to be treated. That is huge.
It's huge. And you got to stop looking at them and stop making them wrong and look in the mirror and own you trained them and you can retrain them. That's it.
Dude, that is just...
That will change your life.
Yes. Yes. If you allow people to run over you, well, then you gave them the power to run over you. If you allow people to raise your voice at you and talk to you in a certain tonality, then you gave them that power. If you have that boss that talks down to you, well, you gave them that power. You have the right to speak up. And you also have the right to say, hey, like for instance, I'm a big believer is no matter what you do in life, whatever you put out, you're going to get in. And nobody like myself, this is one of my pet peeves, right? Like if I take the time to call you, you can at least have the courtesy to respond to it with a text or however, or if I take the time to send you a message, respond. Like you took the time to put this time away for us to be on this podcast. And it's like, I respect that. So I wasn't going to cancel. I'm not. But so many people right now, we use the excuse that we're so busy and they don't respond to messages, they don't return phone calls, or they don't they just kind of, I get it. Everybody's busy, but it's an excuse because what's important to you, you make time for. And a good example is this. If me and you were here hanging out, Joseph, and say, hey, Joseph, let's go play some golf. You're like, no, man, I'm busy, right? Well, it's just going to take a couple hours. Yeah, no, but I'm busy. Okay, cool. But right now, if your wife was to call you and say, honey, I just cut my finger. Let's go. Get off the show. You're going to make time because it's important to you. What's important to you, you make time for. Let me say it again. What's important to you, you make time for. Joseph, you drop so much.
What's not important to you, you make excuses for.
Boom, baby. Wow. Say that again. I
think we all get that. What's not important to you, you make reasons and excuses for.
But somebody needs to hear that. I think somebody really needs to hear that. Sometimes we know it, but it's like everything else, out of sight, out of mind. And when they hear it here on iTunes or Spotify, it's going to be like, oh crap, maybe that's my son, my daughter that I need to make time for.
I think there's so many people can be set free with this one simple principle. The problems in your life you created. No one else. You created them through commission. You committed the crime, or through omission. You allowed it. All the problems in your life you created. So did I. So did Daniel. Yeah. When you're able to own that and say, wow, I am one powerful person because my life looks like crap right now. And I created all that crap.
So are you telling me I created my own frustration this morning, the first part of the day? Is that what you're telling me?
Daniel, you tell me, did you?
Well, yeah. Now we're talking about it. Yeah, like I didn't want to let go of control, and I wanted things to turn out like exactly the way I wanted it to, and it just caused frustration. And
Yes. So
it
let
was,
me lay down this one important thing, because I think this is also important, because some people may listen to this show and say, wow, that's really good. It's awesome, but doesn't apply to me. I work for this boss and I need the money, and man, they mistreat me, but I got to do it because I got a wife and kids at home. Okay. Got it. Great. So Joseph, I get what you're saying, but man, I can't just go tell off my boss. He'll fire me, and there's a pandemic right now, etc. I've applied this simple principle to my life: to own up, to take my part in things, to stop blaming others for what's not working in my life, and to go clean up those messes, right? I also take responsibility for the relationships or the people in my life that don't pour into me. I allowed them into my life. Well, if I have the power to open the door, I also have the power to shut the door, don't I? So I can now go ahead and start to fire people from my inner circle, people that don't encourage me, lift me up the way I encourage them and lift them up. It's important to know you cannot control anyone. You and we cannot control anyone. Yet we have all these people around us that do things differently than we would. And it causes us so much frustration. Or I should say, it causes our little control freak a lot of frustration. So our little control freak puffs its chest and says, I will submit them. And that's what causes all the problems in our relationships. We go out and we're fighting against people rather than inviting people in. So you cannot control people. Okay, what can I control? Control, Joseph. Well, you can control yourself. It's all we have control over is ourselves. And we barely do a great job at that, right? Yet we think we should give advice to others somehow. Yet our life's not working, or areas aren't working, right? I'm talking about myself here.
yeah.
So I applied this principle to my life. Okay, I can't control anyone else, but I can control how I respond to everyone. That I have control over. God gave me 2 great gifts in life, and he gave you 2 great gifts. He gave you life, and he gave you free will. What you choose to do in this life will determine your life, right? So I'm like, okay, right, I'm a very slow-minded guy. I got to like piece puzzle pieces together real slow, like, right? So like puzzle piece 1. Okay. I got to take responsibility for the message of my life. Okay, got it. I can't blame anyone anymore. I allowed them in, right? I can't control people, but I still have some residue in my life. I got relationships that aren't working. I have bosses I don't want to work for, like that cause me so much aggravation. It's not aligned with who I am. Great. I can't control them. Or I have an abusive partner that's beating the crap out of me. I can't go head to head with them because they'll get even more abusive or whatever.
Yeah.
Great. Got it. You're right. But what can you control? Well, you can control your own behavior, couldn't you? You could walk out, couldn't you? You could not tolerate that anymore, couldn't you?
Yeah.
See, this is what we miss out on. So what we do is we try to fight it to control the people, and it doesn't work because they have their control freak come out, and then we just go head to head. Or we can choose to walk away from them. But to be very clear before we do, and I had to do this in my own relationships with, before I fired people in my relationships, personal relationships. And I said, listen, I get who I was my whole life. And I trained, people this way or whatever. And I see all these mistakes I've done along the way. However, the man I'm committed to be looks like this. And I like you and I want you to stay in my life. However, the way you've been occurring lately, I'm not making you wrong, but I'm just saying it doesn't work for me and where I'm going. It's not working for me anymore. So you're free to continue to not change. I can't make you change, but just know if you don't and you're not headed in the same direction, I can control me and I'm going to no longer spend time with you.
Wow.
Everybody has that choice.
Wow. Man,
Don't spend time with people that are not the right fit for where you're going. Stop making them wrong about it. Stop trying to control them. Be very clear with them about your commitment, your new possibilities, and then give them a choice in the matter.
wow.
And then honor that choice, meaning act upon it. When you give your word to it, you act upon it. So if they don't shift their behavior and start treating you right, you're out. You don't spend time with them anymore. See, we think everything's a fight.
Yeah.
It's really hard to fight someone who's walking away from you. Isn't it?
It's kind of like that. What came to mind was when it's like you text somebody something and you do it for the right motives, for the right reason. And then they jab you back and they text you something back. It's like they want that last word. It's like, okay. And then you don't respond. And then they send you another text message like, hey, did you get my last message? And it's like, you don't respond. And it's like, hey, you have to be okay with people walking away from your life. You have to be okay
with you walking away.
Yes.
That's the key. See, so many of us, we're so focused on other people's behaviors. That's why we make them wrong, so that we could be right. Meanwhile, we're screwing up in all areas with our own behavior. How about we just look in the mirror, focus on us, sit down with God, say, God, show me those areas. What areas of my life am I holding on to control and blocking your blessings? What areas of my life do you want out? What do you want to add into my life, right? To sit down with God and just have these conversations. And then when he bubbles something to the surface that's really uncomfortable, that's the thing. That's the answered prayer.
And it's
now
funny you say
surrender it to him.
It's funny you say that because this morning I just felt in my heart that scripture came to mind. I can't put new wine in old wineskin.
That's right.
And it's like, it hurts right now because I'm in that moment of transition. An old season of our life is over and he's extending me, right? He's stretching me is what he's doing. And he's stretching me of my old self that he can pour more of him new self into me. And it hurts, man. And I want to thank you for encouraging me to just come on and be real. And thank you that we did the show today. And I love you, man. I just want to say I love you. You're an amazing friend. You're an amazing brother. I look up to you, Joseph. You're the real deal. Tell my audience, how do they get a hold of Joseph Warren? Because I know you just dropped some amazing wisdom here today on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. How can we get a hold of Joseph Warren?
First, I would say if what I have said to you has offended you in some way, that's not my problem. That's yours. You allowed it. The second thing, if it has offended you in some way, that's God showing you that's an area he wants you to surrender to him. Otherwise, it wouldn't have had any impact whatsoever. The third thing, if somehow you like me through all of this and you say, wow, this is what I need in my life. I need someone to give me clarity on those areas I can't see in my own life. And I need someone to give me accountability so that I actually go and get and take those steps towards those goals. Then I may be that person for you. If that's the case, you can find me at josephwarren.net, josephwarren.net. Again, my podcasts are right here. Broken Catholic, #1 podcast on iTunes for Protestants and Catholics, and then First 100K podcast as well. And I invite each one of your listeners, your audience, Daniel, whoever sees this, if you take nothing more away from this, take this one thing. When you own that everything in your life that's not working, any area of your life that's not working or could be working better, is nobody else's problem. It's nobody else's responsibility. It's your responsibility. And then you stop trying to work on it and you stop trying to fix it. And you go take that thing or that area to God and surrender it to your Heavenly Father and say, Father, I surrender to you my marriage. I surrender to you my little control freak that keeps blocking and hurting my spouse. I can't stop. I don't know how. I have too much dysfunction in me from childhood and trauma and all these hurts and wounds and a lifetime of pain. I surrender it to you. Remove it from me. I give you permission to go in and do that heart surgery. Remove it from me and use force if necessary. in the name of Jesus. When you do that and then believe God actually will take it because he's a loving father and he's in control and you're not, you can let go of trying to fix all the areas of your life, put down that big boulder you've been carrying of your own destiny, and just show up playful and fun in your life until God acts, until God comes in and removes it, because he will honor that prayer. See, there's so much freedom when you put down the boulder of responsibility. First, you got to own the responsibility, but then you got to take it to the one who actually can lift it and surrender it to him. Those are your 2 steps. You do those 2 steps in your life, you can transform any area of your life quickly, rapidly, forever. I've done it. Daniel's done it. I've witnessed you do it, Daniel. You have, the man you are now is not the man that showed up on that first coaching call with me. True or true?
No.
Okay.
Wow,
and let me just wrap this all up in a bow. You are loved. If you're listening to this show right now, you were meant to listen to this. God speaks through broken instruments. I am one of them. I am a broken Catholic and former atheist, and I am a little control freak. And if God can speak through me powerfully and hit you right between the eyes, right into your heart and make you uncomfortable, then he can use you and he can use your brokenness to reach into the hearts of others. This is what you're called for. You're called for greatness. Daniel says it all the time on his show. And Daniel, you did a great thing with me the other day. You spoke truth into me where I had my own blind spot. And you said, Joseph, what I see in you first is your ego. That's what you said to me. And you were right. My ego was flaring. My control freak was flaring that day. And you said, I see that God is trying to take you from a house to a skyscraper. But before he can do so, he has to build a foundation underneath you that is rock solid to support the skyscraper that he's building. Otherwise, it will fall. You are resisting him pouring the cement. You are resisting him pouring the foundation because it hurts and it's uncomfortable and it takes time. Does this sound familiar, Daniel? Because it sounds like the very coaching you gave me is the very coaching you needed to hear today. Yeah. And somebody listening right now needs to hear that. So let's stop fighting God. Let's surrender to him every morning, daily, because by every night, our inner control freak takes over again.
Yeah. Wow.
And just put him in charge. Then your life works. I love you, man.
I love you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on our show. And wow, so much wisdom that Joseph Warren dropped here today on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We have a Facebook group called the Distinctive Syndicate. Please feel free. We receive everybody. Come in. Like Joseph said, you're loved. And in our Facebook group, Distinctive Syndicate, you matter because you're unique and you were created for something special. And God didn't create you by accident. So I want to thank you for tuning in today and just being a part of this amazing, really deep conversation. I know it didn't have the energy, but I'll tell you what, it was powerful and it affected me.
Daniel, on your worst day, at your lowest energy, you surpass 90% of America. So settle down, you little control freak there, buddy.
But that's a wrap for this week's show. We'll see you next week here on the Daniel Gomez Inspire Show. This is Daniel Gomez, and thank you so much for tuning into our show today. We'd love your feedback. Please drop us a comment, and thank you for leaving us a review. Don't forget to subscribe to our show and share this episode with a friend. And my free gift for listening to our show today is a copy of my best-selling book, You Were Born to Fly. To get your free copy, go to DanielGomezInspires.com and get your copy today. That's DanielGomezInspires.com. And to elevate your life and business even more, follow me on social media at Daniel Gomez Inspires on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Together, we will discover the key that unlocks your confidence.